Welcome to Module 3 of the iCore Week 1 program. First, let me say I am so excited for this program and specifically for this area in the module. My name is Todd Greer. I serve as Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Mobile. And there's probably no part of startups and this program that I enjoy as much as the customer discovery process. So when we talk about customers, every business needs customers. Every organization needs customers. Every service needs a customer. But all too often we struggle. We struggle deeply with understanding who is my customer. My rule of thumb as I talk to people is if everybody's your customer, then nobody's your customer. And the reason is when you look at it, you don't have enough money to be able to market to everybody. And so what we walk through in the iCore program, specifically in this module, is really beginning to understand how do you taper that down to find who is your customer. So when we think about this whole section around customers, we're talking about the idea of customer discovery, and we're also talking about the idea of customer segments. So we're going to walk through this, and we're going to get into the program. So the first thing that we want to do is understand what is customer discovery. Customer discovery, as you can well read, is about identifying and understanding the people who will use, choose, and pay for your product or service. And the reason we use, choose, and pay for is those aren't always the same individuals. You see, when we go through this process, the first thing that we want to do is we want to observe. When we observe how people work, the people that we think are going to be our customers, it helps us understand why they will pay for our product. Once we observe, we kind of build our thesis. We believe that this group will purchase our product because of this. We have our hypothesis that follows from that, or the guess of the things that will happen. We learn to ask and experiment. Then we listen, we assess, and we analyze what we're hearing through our interviews, and then we guess again. So ultimately, this is a very iterative process. That means we don't write it all down on day one, think we've got it figured out, and leave it there. The old idea of the business plan, that 50-page paper that you wrote to send to the bank to get a loan, it doesn't exist anymore. This is a single-page process that we're looking at. We put our guesses down, we try it, we figure out if they're validated or invalidated, and we move forward in the process. So, I love this area of it. All right, when we talk about doing interviews, interviews are at the core of the customer discovery process. All right. So Steve Blank, who you probably by this point have already heard about, Steve Blank is kind of the father of this new version of entrepreneurship. All right. His statement is, if you want to be an entrepreneur, the only way you can do it is by getting out of the building. That means don't sit there and think to yourself, oh, I'm at my desk and I'm typing away on my computer. The only way to find out if you have an idea that matters, if you're solving a problem that matters, is by going to talk to people. So we use this framework called the MOM test. Now, let me frame this for you in such a way as this. I don't know about your mom, but my mom, if I ever come to her with an idea, this is what she'll say to me. Oh, honey, that's so wonderful. I'm sure it's going to be great, that everybody would love it. And if I had it as a sales tactic that I wanted to go to her, she would say, oh, of course I'd buy it. Why? Because my mom loves me. She birthed me. She cares about me. She raised me. You know, all of those things are so important. And so a lot of times when we go out and ask people, we fall into that trap of asking mom or asking somebody that already has a vested interest in us. And we ask them, hey, would you use this? Or what do you think about this? And that's where it falls short. So the MOM test is a phenomenal book. Rob Fitzpatrick is the author. I use it in a lot of the work that I do, but here's a quick synopsis of it. When you interview, don't ask them for their opinions. Everybody has opinions, but those don't really matter. Don't ask the customer to speculate. Well, what do you think about this? If I were to do this, what would you think? You don't want that. You don't want to ask leading questions either. You're not an attorney, okay? What you really want to do is you want to find out what. Okay, so don't ask them, would you do a product that did this, or how much would you pay for a product did that. Instead, when you interview, you want to know, I always say the P's: people, place, and process. All right, our people, problem, place, process. Ask those kinds of questions. So when this happens to you, what do you do? Okay, if you're trying to solve a problem, ask the people who have had that problem. When this happens to you, what do you do now? And the reason we ask that is if we can find out how they're currently trying to solve that problem, we can figure out if this is a problem that they would be worth, that they would have as a worth solving situation. So we want to find out, what does it look like? How much does it cost them when this problem occurs? All right. Ask about the people that it impacts. What people in the organization find this kind of situation? What do they do about it? What products do they use to solve it? All right. Where are they in the organization when they do that? Think about where they are in both the physical organization. So, where do they sit? What departments are they in? Think about where are they at in regard to the hierarchy of an organization. Are they at the front line? Are they middle managers? Are they higher ups? What does that look like? Ask about the actions, as we said. Think about what is it that goes on. You want to ask those great questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Those same questions that you learned how to ask in second grade. All right, you want to find out what the issue is. So sometimes when you're trying to solve something, you're solving what I call the presenting problem. My wife is a counseling psychologist. Many people will come with a presenting problem, but when you really dig in and find out the who, what, where, when, why, and how, what you actually find out is that the real problem is something totally different than what they told you or what you thought initially. And so that's what you want to find out. How did they try to solve it previously? What did it look like? I always ask, hey, tell me about the last time this happened to you. Because when you ask them about the last time something occurred, what you're actually getting is you're getting detail as they think through the process. They're thinking through what happened, and you're not asking for conjecture. So that's a really important part of this customer discovery process. Don't fail the mom test. Don't go ask, hey mom, what do you think about this? Great, love it. All right. And so when we talk about like doing these interviews, because interviews are really important, you got to get out of the building, and you're going to hear every week about having a certain number of interviews and making sure you do that. What we want you to understand is that not all interviews are the same. If you're like me and like most people, your first thought is, hey, I'm going to go ahead and email people, or maybe I'll do a survey and I'm going to send it out and get it that way. But those really don't have the same value, because if you think about it, we learn so much just by watching each other. So you could ask somebody and they could be sitting back in their chair, and all of a sudden when you say something, they may perk up. All right, you're reading their body language, and it's going to be able to tell you something. Now, we understand this is COVID-19, and so everybody's not going to be able to be face-to-face. So we understand. But video interviews are great. So we live in an age of Zoom, so it's not uncommon for people to be able to jump on a Zoom call or a Google Meet call or a Microsoft Teams call or a Skype call or a WebEx call or whatever your platform is that you choose to use. But sometimes it does miss out, because right now you only see a part of me. You can't see what else I'm looking at on my desktop. Maybe I'm thinking about something different. But these things are here and available for you. So if you call on the phone, it's neutral. Yes, it's better than nothing, but it's hard. It's easy for that person to tune you out. It's also easy for you to miss all of the facial and body language signs that they're throwing out there. When you do a survey really doesn't always give you the availability, because when you ask a question in a survey, it's there, it's stuck, it's static. You don't have the ability to go deeper. So you don't have the ability to control that group. And even if you did group dynamics, it doesn't give you the same aspect, because that loudest voice in the room oftentimes determines it. Your emails should be used to schedule appointments, not for your interviews. All right, so what does an interview process actually look like? You have to start with that hypothesis. What's the idea that you want to test? So you've been working through, and you'll continue to work through your business model canvas, and maybe you want to test some assumptions that you have. All right, that's an important thing that you have prepared. You want to make sure that you introduce yourself, your team. You want to remind them that what you're trying to do is not sell. I'm not here to sell. I am a student in the I-Corps program doing research. All right. That's the kind of stuff that also goes into that email introduction when you're trying to get an intro or an interview scheduled. You want to make sure, hey, look, folks, I'm not trying to sell. I'm just a student doing research. There's nothing that makes people clam up more than sales. And trust me, we're all getting sold to like crazy right now. And there's nothing that opens it up for more people than the idea of I'm a student doing research. Because people love students, A, and B, they love to help with research. So start wide when you're doing the process, okay? You want to be able to make sure that you understand a larger context, and then you'll move in. Ask them to tell you a story. We talked about that. Ask them to tell you about a time when this thing happened. Make sure you're asking those open-ended questions, and then drill down. The design firm IDEO kind of led this idea of 5 whys. So when you've asked why 5 times in a subsequent fashion, you usually have drilled down further to really understand the why behind the what. So that's really important. But when you close, don't ever leave an interview without asking, hey, what else should I have asked you about? Or what did I not touch on that you really wish I would have? Because sometimes their experience, the insight that they have there will actually lead you into a totally new opportunity that you never would have thought about before. Then you want to make sure you ask the question, hey, who else should I talk to? Who else has a similar role to you that might be good to talk to? Who else in your organization makes sense? We're in partnerships and professional organizations. Can I follow up with you later? And then be certain to thank them. And even it goes a long way to follow up with an email thank you as well, thanking them for their time. All right. So key points: don't sell. Don't sell, don't sell, don't sell, don't sell. It's so hard for us when we're so excited about this stuff, whatever it is, the project that you're working on, it's so hard for us to hold back from selling. But don't sell, because then you lose all of the insight that comes from them. Don't ask them what they want. Look, if you have the kid that's let loose in a candy store, they're going to tell you all sorts of things. Most of the time, none of it makes sense in the end, and it's not something that matters. They're going to tell you about all these bells and whistles. What you want to get is, what is the minimally viable product that you can get out? And certainly don't talk tech. Don't talk the ins and outs. Oh, well, this is the CVP S123 for this organization, and it does this, blah, blah. Don't talk about that, all right? Listen. You're there to listen. We always talk about, don't be the big mouth, be the big ears so that you can listen. So once we've gone through and we think about what this customer discovery process looks like, it really helps for us to dig deeper into the customer segments. All right, so at the core of the business model canvas, we have these boxes, all right? So these boxes really are incredibly important, but at the core of them are these 2 that you see in red: the value proposition and the customer segment. When you have those things working together, you create what we call product market fit. So your value proposition, that's the thing that you bring that provides value. This is what we propose, or we think this is what they're trying to accomplish. So you think about, everybody has a pain point. Well, your value proposition in many ways is the pill. It's the pain reliever that they're trying to get. And then we want to look at the customer segment. We want to look at who they are. Why are they how they are? Where do they exist in organizations? What types of organizations are they in? What nuances? So maybe there's a different value proposition for a buyer versus a user. All right? Those are important things that you want to get to. The customer segment can look different, all right? It may be that you've got a small group, you've got a larger group. That's not always important, but you want to be able to narrow it down. Again, remember, if everybody's your customer, nobody's your customer, all right? So we use this business thesis to help us through the process, and it's very simple. The equation, your business thesis is the customer segment, whomever that is, will buy your product because of the value proposition, all right? When we work into this, we want to make sure that we're working to get very specific, though, all right? Because a customer segment is not this broad thing. A customer segment is a very specific thing. You almost want to think about that archetype. I usually like to get down and get to the point that I think of a person with an age or with a specific role in a specific type of organization that maybe has a unique demographic or psychographic framework to them. Because then that helps me. Who else are the Bills in accounting who've been there for 5 years in a large manufacturing firm? Or who are the Sallys that have been in a small business that are doing this or that? You know, you want to get those kinds of things. And then you want to think about who else is part of that process as well. Because most organizations, they have different customer segments. And the value proposition that works for those customer segments, they're different from each other. And last, and this is incredibly important on this part, is you always have to be open to a change. Steve Blink likes to say that no value proposition or no idea, no venture overcomes or makes it through its first contact with a potential customer without changing. You're going to change because you're going to learn. And that's really part of this process is you want to learn and you want to grow. All right, so when we think about customer segments, we have different archetypes or personas that we see in organizations. You might have a decision maker. They're the person that chooses to adopt, but they may not be the payer. The payer is the person usually in accounting or accounts payable. They're the CFO. They're the person who writes the check. It's the difference between, you think about it, a user, let's say you're selling to a kid's product. The user is the kid, but the payer is maybe mom and dad. Maybe it's grandparents, aunts and uncles, etc. They all have different roles. Sometimes you'll see all three of those combined into one person, but many times they're not. All right. We also have these personas. You have people inside the organization who might be the evangelist for it. They're the person that says, yes, we've got to do this, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. But then at the same time, in that same organization, you might have a saboteur, somebody who doesn't want it to happen because it will disrupt their job, it'll change their role, it'll do all these kinds of things. And they're people who don't want something to happen. You need to identify who those people are. And then you also need to understand influencers, all right? Every type of service or product has an organization or a group that has some sway. You think about right now, we live in a day and age of social media influencers. These are the people that we look to, and when they say this, we oftentimes open our ears and pay attention. All right? So here is your customer segment. Let's think about it. I manufacture x-rays. So therefore, my target customer is hospitals, right? Wrong. All right, if I manufacture x-ray machines, my target customer is not a hospital. Hospitals that's an organization. That's not a person. I want to get in and I want to think about what's the job role or the title. I want to think about who they report to. That may be the person that has the authority or the buyer in that situation. I want to think about where they have authority, and I want to think about what the archetype that they're in. So you want to look at that and understand nuances. So if you come in and you say, my customer segment is universities. No, universities are not your customer. Maybe a specific person, a director of finance could be your customer. So you want to get into the nuanced details of what that looks like. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to take 3 minutes here. We're going to be able to take some time so that you can brainstorm and think about customer segments for the example that you're working on. Are you ready? Here is the example. We'll start our 3-minute clock shortly, and this is your delightful thing. You have grass slides, grassslides.com. So 3 minutes starting now. Start brainstorming who your customer is. All right. Hope that you had a great time thinking through who would use those delightful grass slides. They are highly fashionable, I know. Certainly they are for the sod fanatics among us. But hopefully you thought about it and it gave you an opportunity just to work through that. So we want to conclude with this, with recognizing what is it that we need to take away from this whole conversation. Customers. You want to make sure that you understand who your customer is in specific, and you want to understand their need. We talk a lot about the idea of pain points. What's the pain that they're feeling? Because everybody buys something to solve a problem. Everything you have, from your clothes that you wear, the vehicle that you use, the food that you eat, they're all being purchased to solve a problem, okay? You just don't often think about the problem. So you want to find out what those things look like. Make sure that you're interviewing fruitfully. Don't fail the mom test, all right? I'll come find you if you fail the mom test. Know the roles of the people that you're looking at. Make sure you have the right people identified so that you're going through the process as you interview. Make sure you know who else influences that process, and make sure you get specific as you go through the journey. So this is the customer process. I want you to think about now what your assignments are as you take away in week 1. Make sure that you use that Udacity platform. Look at Steve Blank's program, How to Build a Startup. Great stuff there. There's a lot to learn from. You're going to do your interview questions. You want to make sure that those are submitted. Submit 5 relevant conferences, because through the I-Corps program, you can get funding to go out and meet and interview people, or to virtually attend conferences and engage in virtual breakout sessions. You want to make sure that your business thesis is submitted, as well as your value proposition canvas. That will take you through and get you set for week 1, and the assignments are due. Thank you so much. My name's Todd Greer again. This is a fun one, and this is where it begins. So have a great one, and we'll talk more soon. Bye-bye.